You could definitely say I am a strange bird. I have a segment that I call Going Back With. I call it Going Back Again, Going Back Some More. But when I do shorter interviews, sometimes I'll just say Talking With. And in this case, I was talking with Matt DeLoach. A lot of what we talked about was his time when he coached under Don Rice at Jefferson Forest. Coach DeLoach also throws some principles that he learned as an assistant coach that's helped him as the head coach of the Alta Vista Colonels. Colonels hosted Media Day this past week at Alta Vista High School. Matt DeLoach did a wonderful job with that, but he did an even better job fielding some questions from me that he won't hear every day. Talking with Matt DeLoach right here on the Sports Buffet podcast.
All right, talking to Matt DeLoach about the good old days. When did you know you want to be a coach?
It's funny. We were talking about Don Rice earlier, off air. It was then, when he came into JF my senior year, it was kind of transformational for me. He took me under his wing, a lot of things that he was writing on the board, I kind of showed an interest in. And prior to that, I didn't start playing football until I was in ninth grade. That was the first I played baseball my entire life. Then when I moved up this way, it kind of, some areas opened up and I was able to, jump into playing the game and fell in love with it, and then Coach Rice actually showed me a different side of it. That's kind of when I kind of took on the, wanting to be a coach. So.
Is there a biggest thing that he showed you?
Yes, if you remember those years, it's power football, and he's been that even now in recent years. But it was also just about the technicality of the game. It was in a different sense, So for me, I enjoyed scheming against people. I think we're one of the better programs that's able to do that. Second half adjustments has always been our thing. But I think just planning out something and being able to stop somebody's offense. I fell in love with defense early on. So, yeah, those things, the schematics of the game, the approach to the game was definitely what he showed me.
What is there to fall in love with about defense in your eyes?
That's a great question. I think for us, it's the simplicity of it. It looks like we're doing so many things on the field, that we're making so many calls, but really, we give the guys a couple of reads. We give them, this is the job that you need to get done, and our guys play fast. If you've ever seen us play football, here in Alta Vista, they're like jackals to a football. It's because we kind of take a lot of the thinking out of it. It's just their bodies reacting to what they see. Playing fast, and with defense, for me, I enjoy offense, absolutely. But, with defense, like I said, it's, trying to stop somebody to try to do what they're doing against you. I think, it's kind of like a war approach, we're trying to, get our battle line straight. So I've been in love with defense for a number of years now.
When you were a player, how much did you hate practice?
Well, shoot, it's the funniest thing is all I remember is Coach Rice's practice, and those were, quite literally hell. It's two-a-days were different back then, and two-a-days lasted a lot longer back then, so I would say those moments, and it's kind of the things that I talk about with these guys. It's yes, do those days suck? Absolutely, but I'm here right now standing and talking about the game still, and obviously I got through those days. Those are hard days, but I talked about it, a couple minutes ago about, hey, the hardest thing to do is actually showing up. So, I think the drills that Coach Rice put us through, he was a former Marine, so I think he took us probably through some of the stuff that he did, when he was in basic training. So it's, those moments were hard, but it's kind of made me who I am now.
From your playing days, what's the one play that sticks out to you? You don't have to, it didn't have to be your play, but what's one play that stuck out to you from your playing days?
Yeah, we had a guy on our staff, Mondreas Oakley. He played at Jefferson Forest High School, and we're playing Stanton River. And I think people were kind of still not sure if we were going to be a good team or not. And, he broke out. And if you remember old Stanton River, I don't know if they fixed it now, but they used to have that big crest in the middle of their football field. You remember that? You would stand on one side of the sideline and just see somebody's head on the opposite sideline. It was so big. But I just remember when he said he got to the bottom of that, he said he felt like he was just absolutely rolling. And I just remember that, he ran kind of right past me on his way to the end zone, and that's always really kind of stuck out to me. So
you're not an old guy. What's the biggest thing you've learned from year one to now coaching?
Even as an assistant coach?
Sure.
It's the head coaching chair, being in that is a lot different. You still coach, and you want to make sure that you're, still doing that for the kids, but now it's kind of about a total program. For me, I think it was, and I speak about Coach Rice a lot because he's definitely a man that's made me who I am today. It was one of the first games that I was a part of as an assistant coach. I'm sitting at the desk, where we all kind of met. This was down when I was coaching at Jefferson Forest High School, and he storms in the building and he just starts saying whatever he was saying to us, probably something that I can't say on air, and asking why we weren't helping him out, set up the field. And that was the last time that I was ever caught not doing something, helping somebody out. And I've carried that, into me being a head coach as well, always have a worker's mindset, being humble, no matter what you are, if you're the head coach or if you're the assistant to an assistant, So it's most definitely Coach Rice has instilled those values in me.
Coach DeLoach and the Colonels look for another good season. It kicks off in just a few weeks, and Matt DeLoach has tried to instill community in that Alta Vista program, which I believe can be huge for the Colonels as they want to stay atop the Dogwood. And a lot of people will talk about togetherness and family and team bonding and all that jazz, and it's true. But Matt DeLoach really seems like he wants those guys to become a brotherhood on the field. For the Sports Buffet podcast, this has been Bob Alvis.